Welcome, everybody, to This Week in X, presented by Crushing Comics. I'm here with my friends, my fellow X-Men fans from around the world, from me, Fariha, Harry, and Tyler, and we are here to talk about Marauders number 18, out on the 17th of February, 2021. And this is your warning that this is a full spoilers broadcast. We're going to discuss all the plot details of this issue, as well as other issues in the X-Men line and other things happening in the Marvel Universe. So that is your warning. Marauders 18, as we like to do, let's begin with a go-round of our reactions. Please, let's not get into the one big shocker just in the go-round, because we will have plenty of time for that. Tyler, you go first.
I'm a little bit conflicted about this issue, because I thoroughly enjoyed the first half of the issue, and then the second half was a little bit too simplistic when dealing with international relationships, I think. So, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but it just doesn't seem credible the ways the event turned out. I mean, that said, the strength of the first half is enough to get this issue to a 3.5 plastic surgeries out of 5.
Oh my goodness. Harry.
All right. So this is low-key a very weird issue. It is, the pacing of it is kind of bizarre. And I agree, you know, Tyler, you touched on something where the handling of international factions and commerce and what have you seems to be kind of on fast forward. It seems very neat and tidy the way they move. On one hand, that did bother me when I was reading it. On the other hand, I do feel like this book has been very decompressed at times, so I wasn't too upset that it's moving quick, but it left a weird feeling. There's a scene at the beginning of this issue that's incredible, and I've been thinking about it the last couple of days, and then there's an art transfer, and then there's a huge reveal. There's just a lot going on in this book that is interesting, if not great. So I would also give it 3.5 surgeries out of 5, but you know, it's the most interesting 3.5 I think I've read in a while.
Fariha.
So I went like, oh, and then, and I was like, oh, okay. But ultimately, you know, for every person who's like, oh my God, mutants have nothing to worry about. This is the issue. I'm going to shove it down their throat, staples and all. This is the issue for that. I mean,
ouch. You've been warned.
Screw that nonsense. Because you know what? Racist people are still there. There are still people who called mutant muties. Every time I hear that, my head gets on fire. And, you know, it happens so much over here. But, we're going to talk about it. Anyway.
All right.
It's a good issue.
I was torn because I think it started with such a big thing that it was impossible to stop thinking about that. And they almost got me off topic because they brought a lot of great stuff through the rest of the issue. Mask, any kind of Morloxy mask thing, I'm there. Any kind of like bringing the Reavers back, I'm there. But when I got to the end of the issue, it did feel a little empty calorie to me, which is often my dispute about Marauders, that it like feels like we're always opening plot threads and we're never kind of like closing any plot threads. And now there's only one issue. It says to be concluded. It's not ending next issue. They've already solicited 20, but I think this big plot is concluding. So it was a little bit under par for me. I think it had a lot of great moments that I'm going to remember, but as a comic book issue, it kind of was just like,
It's totally fair. Yeah, it's very scattered.
Yeah, so we're going to get to all three of those big moments because they're all things that we enjoy. But look, we've got to start with the elephant in the room. If you can ever call anything associated with Emma Frost and Elven, it's the best dressed elephant that's ever lived on the planet Earth. Because Emma Frost dunks on Xavier and Magneto so hard. And she dunks in a way that really, really makes it seem like she knows everything about Moira McTaggart as Moira X and her participation in this. And before I throw to Fariha, let me just point out, she's having this unveiling for a hospital. She invites Charles and Eric, Magneto, and she also has Proteus there, which is like a huge breach because he's one of the 5 and you do not want to risk one of the 5. So immediately it's like, what would cause Emma to be able to bring him there? Then the hospital is called Moira McTaggart Memorial, although I think they're missing the word hospital. Like this, some things just felt rushed in this issue. And so then she unveils a statue of Moira, and it's not like lab coat Moira that we all know with like the high ponytail and the cow sweater or the, you know, no, it's Moira with the friggin' hoop earrings. It's the Moira that's on Tyler's shirt for those of you watching. And it ends, Charles and Eric are like, WTF. And it ends with Emma saying, it's worth it just for the look on Eric and Charles's faces. Fariha?
So I actually went and checked. The the jacket that Moira's wearing is the same from the Hawks 2 that Xavier and her goes to the island to talk to Magneto. It's that same jacket. So therefore, she definitely got this from Magneto's memory because Magneto is hanging around her without his helmet a long time. That's what you're getting. However, and this is my question because I don't pay attention to things. So as far as Xavier and Magneto is concerned, they've been dealing with Moira, this version of Moira, for a very long time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is like a whole lifetime.
Yeah,
so
Xavier met her like at Oxford.
Right, and then he knew it from then, and they have been planning and doing all of this time. So why is Emma showing it off to them now? Like, we as reader know about it now. So why is Emma holding on to this information for this long and decide to rub it on their face now? I mean, I didn't get it. I didn't get that, like, in terms of like, yes, for us, it's a huge shocker because, oh my God, we just learned about this. As far as these characters are concerned, it's not a new thing. It's been going for, so why is she waiting this long? Why she hasn't said that every time she needed to up one them? I didn't quite get that.
Look, I think it's a terrific question. I have some thoughts on it, but I want to let everybody have the go round and maybe see what their thoughts are before we come back around to me. So, Harry?
Yeah, I was also taken aback, to say the least. I was just reading, I'm like, oh, okay. So Emma knows a lot more than I think we've been led to believe, or at least I had thought. And I had just questions on questions. I was just doing dishes. Like, so how long did she know? Where did this go? Like, where's this going?
Yeah.
I thought it was cool. And, but it definitely makes me wonder how much of their inner workings and plans that she's known about and what that means for the future. Because, like, of course, if Emma knows it, then things might get more complicated.
Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, the first question is like, oh, wait, does Emma know? Like, and then I was like, okay, fine. It's obvious that she knows something. But, like, how does she know, Is it because, Magneto took off his helmet and say, well, tell me what happened briefly in King in Black Marauders? Or is it because Emma is sleeping with Wolverine and Wolverine was shown?
No, why would anyone on the internet ever say that sentence? Woo! I might bleep that out.
Bleep it out. Gross, disgusting.
Because
you're going to jail.
As Fariha pointed out, Wolverine knew about Moira because of the alternate timeline that Saturnine shown it to him after he stabbed her. So
we think that's the Fariha theory.
Yeah.
The theory, the Fariha theorem.
Yeah, that's my theorem. Like, No, I was like, okay, why are you rubbing it on here? I just didn't get it.
I know.
I just didn't get that.
So, look, we've realized over time that Marauders, in part, is the story of Emma moving chess pieces very subtly on the Quiet Council and getting her way, right? Finally putting one over on Shaw, bringing her brother into the fold, doing all of these things. Now, changing who handles which market, changing the balance of the power on the committee itself by selecting Kate, although originally she said she might have a different choice for the nomination. Yeah. And then in a way, having her own shadow council and in the Hellfire Club of all of these, bishops and whatever. So maybe she knew about more all along, or maybe not. I don't have a good answer to that question. Did she pick something up off of Xavier when Xavier first brought her to Krakoa and she had that for the children moment? Has she picked it up on Magneto since then? That would actually be really clever. I don't know. But there's something that Emma's trying to get from them. Emma is nothing if not transactional. What does she want? Or what does she want them to react to now when she could have unsettled them with this Moira statue at any point? And to that point, even though Moira has been dead since Dream's End, which was pre-Morrison at this point, or always, she was never relevant before now, really, unless at some point Hickman goes back and tells us, oh, it was Morrow who got Xavier to get Scott to make Utopia, or, like pulled some other strings.
Yeah.
As far as we know, the next plot relevance for Morrow, really, after Dream's End was, hey, it's Krakoa time, and Charles and Eric being like, this is how it's going to be. We've brought all these technological things together that you've suggested, and we think we know a better way now. So it's only been relevant for Emma so long as Marauders has existed, because Morrow's been brought back into the fold. So I don't really have a full answer for these questions for you, but like that's how far I got on my own this week. I don't know. Does that go round give you some more things to bring up and talk about?
Yeah, so I do like that explanation. But then to that brings me to my second point and I'm pretty sure this is probably explained somewhere and stuff. Why does it matter if everyone else knows about Moira?
Because it's like the reveal that like they're in like a cycle of realities and there's like a much bigger game being played.
I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen when she dies the last time, I guess, is one part of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but don't say her power, what her power is. Just say that, hey, she's back. She's alive. We always come back from dead. Like,
but they're going to have to explain that she's a mutant. That's the thing. Nobody does. Does this imply that Emma knows that she's a mutant, right? To bring more back, they plenty of people have been brought back, But to bring her back and have to explain she was a mutant all this time and then answer the questions that go along with that starts to unravel. And I think too that we have to remember, like, we don't know really what Xavier's plan is here. Like, it's been issues and months since we've talked about the whole mutant dynamo thing. Why is it important they're all in Krakoa? Why is it important they're all brought back? It's not just out of the goodness of his heart. And look, we're doing this much explaining because the books are not doing it for us. Like, I don't want to make it out like Fariha's questions are such easy questions that we're answering. We're having this discussion because the X-Men books took the most interesting thing about Huxbox and they've pretty much put it in a deep 6 for 18 issues. So we're rabid to talk about this, but we need a little bit more context than this too, I think is the answer to this question. I don't know, Fariha, is that fair?
That's what because I'm saying that in Marvel Universe, everyone comes back. Like, they're like, oh yeah, she's not a mutant, she's a human, and she came back because it's no one will blink an eye. That's what I'm saying. So that's one of the reasons I was just like, okay, so then what is the point of all of this? I don't know. Maybe because I was so focused on this couple of pages at the early on that I just started to thinking way more about this. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Peter. We do not know the ultimate plans. So we do know that Xavier, Magneto, and Moira has a plan. And this is only the beginning of that plan. So we do not know where it's going to lead and how or what is going to happen. So and why is there a resistance to have precogs on the island?
They need to follow up next issue, this one soon after, about what's going on with Emma's plan here, because it's too big a thing to put in this issue and then just kind of leave sitting there. So
I'm pretty sure
all
that
happening at Gala.
In the Gala.
Is all happening at the Gala.
But then, how
the Gala.
Montian? I mean, we did, Tyler and Free and I just read this Shadow King's first appearance, and we were trying to figure out how many issues went by before the Shadow King was even hinted at again. I mean, this just goes to show, we say that people are impatient all the time, but here we are, 4 impatient readers. It's been 18 issues, and we're like, oh, it took so long to get on this plot hook. Like, welcome to reading X-Men in a way. Although I think there's also valid points to be made about, like, you can't set up a whole era with the status quo and then non-comment on the status quo. I have one final comment here, then we're moving on. If you read Emma's X-Men Black one-shot, which came just before the Uncanny X-Men run that came just before Age of X-Men, which came just before Huxbox, it kind of establishes that Emma was very interested in being the King in Black, the Black King, not the King in Black, different story, the Black King of the Hellfire Club, and being in charge of kind of the fate of the mutant race, and that she's willing to make sacrifices sometimes as long as she gets a say in the control. And that was written by the brilliant Leah Williams, who we adore on this channel, who I think actually understands Emma the best of anybody on the planet, really, based on her tweets about Emma. She's only written her the one time, but I think she really gets it. So part of me can't help but think, like, the Hickman stuff was in the air at that point. Did we know that Emma was going to be kind of one of the major players here? And were we kind of seeding that there? Were we seeding it in the way that she acted in Matthew Rosenberg's Uncanny X-Men? Some fans are really like, did any of that stuff matter? We're seeing that it mattered for Prodigy, right? How did he die? Oh, I died with everybody else like Loa. No, he didn't. So is this one more thing that actually was seeded, and it just took us 2 whole years to figure out that it was hinted before we got here? That's my final comment on the Emma thing. Okay. Small plot point, worth one go round though. The hospital opens and Callisto shows up with a mask, one of the downright nastiest characters in X-Men history, I would say. And Mask basically just can melt and reform your skin. He's a walking mutant plastic surgeon, and Callisto introduces him because it's to this couple that has a baby with like a cleft lip or a palate or something of that nature, and says, it's his turn to contribute as Dr. Mask. Now, this is a real thing. My partner actually is really good friends with somebody from the States who twice a year would fly to remote locations all around the world, who's a plastic surgeon, and just do this for like a week. He would like stay up, he would like take his vitamin C and stay up as long as he could, and he would do as many surgeries as he could for a week to fix problems that kids had like this, and then fly home and like recover. And that was just part of the things that he did as the year goes on. So first of all, this is drawn from like a very real thing that happens in the world. But also, I love that Callisto, now having been reborn through the Crucible, is like giving Mask this transformative experience too. Mask, who stabs her in the back so many times over the years. So Tyler, you're our most experienced X-Men reader here. What did this make you feel anything to see Mask holding a little baby?
Yeah, I mean, his face when the parents were so appreciative, and then the baby with that cute smile when they were hugging him. I think it just goes to shows that like most people just want to feel appreciated, and in some ways, I think, I think in this case, it is the rehabilitation of Mask, and giving him a real chance to function as a contributing members of the society, and that I think sort of like helps him be a better person.
Harry?
I mean, yeah, I don't have familiarity with this character, but this is like the scene of the book. This is a beautiful scene. It's like a great sentiment of this character, who I figured was probably at least slightly villainous or something along those lines.
More than a little.
Yeah. I don't know, but just having this opportunity to be kind and to make the world a better place in a small way, or, add some good to the world, and just like his kind of silent, like just taking it in at the very end. I think this was like easily one of the best scenes of the book, like period, like throughout the issues so far. I really, really liked it.
Fariha, any thoughts on that?
So is he part of the Morlocks?
He is. He's a classic named Morlock from the earliest Morlock appearances.
And they're kind of like more of an underground mutant, like, living in the sewer.
They're the tunnel rats.
I don't want to say it.
Yeah, Free does not like sewers in comic books. That's a no.
So the thing is, anyway, no, I was actually I really loved it, because the thing is, it kind of also shows that, I was talking about that, shoving this down people's throat about new status quo, who are complaining about the new status quo, because this is what new status quo allows. Like, this allows that this kind of rehabilitation of kind of like unsavory mutants in a way, and then provide a path for them so that they can actually figure out that their power, which I'm assuming they were using all this time for really terrible stuff, or like, taking like disfiguring people, now they can use it to help people. And this is like, this also kind of goes back to the human mutant relationship being at display. And then from all of that point of view, I thought it was very perfect. And then that's the child smile that made me go, "Aw!" The way, it was I think it was a she, like, just went. That was really very cute. Image. That was very cute. So yeah, so I think from that it was a very nice touch.
I feel like I could write a 10,000 word essay just on the panel of him looking at his hands, speechless, and her saying, "I've got other work to do. Have fun." And the implication of like, this is you having fun with your power. There's so many times in history, especially towards the beginning of X Factor, that Mask gleefully uses his powers to disfigure. But like, is it fun? He's a dyed-in-wool, tried and true Morlock. He's one of these people that like were never going to be accepted. He's one of the ones that leaves the X Factor facility when X Factor is like, you can stay here, and Mask is like, no, that's not going to work. I've got to go back, And he's never had the chance to not be worried about being the oppressed in order to even ask the question about what would fun with my power looks like, because his version of fun with his power was always a reflection of his repression and ostracization. And this idea of Callisto using Krakoa to go to individual Morlocks and say, what's the thing you would have done instead with your life if you hadn't been oppressed from birth as a mutant and then oppressed from birth on top of that as an ugly mutant? I think it's the thing I'm the most interested to see these books dig into a little bit. It's why I get so excited every time Callisto shows up. And this, I mean, what is it? 2 pages, 3 pages, 3 pages? It's one of the best scenes in this whole Jonathan Hickman, because it says all of those things. I love when scenes say those things without, and Fariha and Harry don't even know Mask's full history. And I feel like you guys still kind of got all of this, right? Like I didn't need to say all of this. And I think that's...
I mean, I saw Musk. I'm like, oh, brother, no.
And also, probably the only time in Mask's life he's ever worn a tie and has ever shampooed his hair. Let's just put that out there too. So I just think that this scene is worth 1,000 Maura McTaggart statues to me. Like that was fun, but this to me is so much more valuable.
This taps into like a deeper level, like emotional resonance than anything the books. I mean, that book has sometimes done before, but this is just special. It felt better.
We just kicked Harry off because
Harry's been
different ideas about things we didn't like those. Just kidding.
So Harry had to step away from recording today. He's not in the Krakoan hole. We haven't sent him to the resurrection protocols that we're willing to reveal to you. He'll be back in a body that looks remarkably similar next week, but maybe with a few changes here and there that he might have gotten the 5 to make form. So let's talk about the last scene in this issue, which is Iceman buys a bar. It's Iceman starring Coyote Ugly starring Iceman. And they buy this bar because it's like one of these last land grabs that they can make in Krakoa. But running as an undercurrent through this whole issue is the Hellfire Club kids being like, oh, they're ruining our takeover of Madripoor. I might have just said Krakoa. We all know I meant Madripoor. Yeah. And so they buy the bar, but they've only bought it for a minute before the Hellfire Club unleashes Reavers on them. And I have to say, if there's any way to redeem these Hellfire Club kids, which we know I historically don't like, at least have them bring back some other classic X-Men nonsense like Reavers, right? Like that's an easy way to my heart. Yeah. And to the point though, that they're trying to make the X-Men have a PR problem on the international stage. Does this sequence of events work for you, Tyler? This whole, like, they buy a bar, they were immediately unleashed the Reavers on them. They knew they bought the bar like a second later, and then they're in the UN 2 minutes after that. Like, does this work?
I mean, everything kind of works up to the point where it's like, this is a setup, and the UN put an embargo on Marauders. They cannot go onto Madripoor anymore. And I was like, that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, I know what you're getting at, but like, why would the UN be involved in this based on like one fight? And I don't know. And the
X-Men have been into so much nonsense on Madripoor throughout this series and the Wolverine series. Like, what about this one fight at a bar that they owned makes it worth all of this nonsense? Like, it just seems like it was really sudden.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
I hated it. Like, I was like, whatever, and it's not because like, oh my god, I don't want mutants to have like any challenge or anything. It's not that. It's just like, we've seen this a million times before. I kind of like the idea that, they're trying to trick us and get public opinion, sway the public opinion by taking pictures and stuff. That is very real life, and that is like, very useful and all of that. But the thing is, I'm hard pressed to believe Krakoa doesn't have their ambassador in UN. Exactly. Like, the Krakoan chair is empty. Like, are they? Well, maybe they are. Maybe they're that stupid. Maybe
no, but they're not. That's the thing. It just didn't make sense.
I don't know. Maybe Maybe they're just in the statue unveiling everyone. Maybe that's what they're supposed. I don't know. And that's what I'm saying though. But because it now creates this kind of situation, right? It's like, are they that dumb? Like, why? Why are we even having these stories, right?
That's the thing.
So, and then first, I hate those kids. Like, seriously, Emma Frost, Kate Pryde, Storm, their nemesis are those dumb kids. Like, seriously, come on, do better. But the thing, and one thing I was actually a little bit, I was like, whoa, they kind of went there, because the thing is, there's one of the fight scene, Bishop is like, I'm unarmed, don't shoot. It was a very stark, like, with a lot of things that going on with, and with a black man. And I thought it was something, because I think like Luke Cage kind of did that same thing in the TV series, where it's like he's being shot at, but nothing happens. And there was like a very much of a real life allegory over there. And I think they were trying to do the same allegory, like, he was shot at, but nothing happened to him. But I don't know if that's earned. That was kind of, that kind of made me go a little bit, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, you have to think that the X Office is a very diverse place at this point, and just because Duggan's the writer on this book, it doesn't mean that he didn't consult with a lot of people on that moment. Like, you just don't know anymore when it comes to X-Men, which is as it should be. Isn't it nice to be able to say that about X-Men finally? Because it's nothing we could ever say before the last couple of years, that like, well, this reads a little weird, but they actually have women and people of color and LGBT people in this room with them, because that's not really often the case in the history of X-Men. So that's nice. But I do think that it's like, you've always gotta, just like you have to, you can't use somebody being like, but I can't breathe anymore in the same way, because it has overtones in the real world now, that you have to be like, did you think about that line of dialogue and the way that it's being portrayed in the page and the way somebody's using force against them? You gotta just think about the implications about these kind of like hands up moments with a black man, one of the few on the X-Men.
And not just that he's being shot at by racist people. Like, it's even another layer of that, So that I was like, ugh.
But then there's also the layer of Bishop and his grin in the next panel of like, it's like, race is gonna racist, Reaver's gonna Reaver. Like, they're gonna shoot me, and I'm not somebody that you can actually just do that with. Here's the thing that I kind of came away from this with. I loved everything about this up until the moment that Bishop said this is a setup, time to go. I like the buying of the bar. I like the downtime scene with the boys. I love Pyro being Pyro. I love Bishop looking fine and being in charge. I loved everything about this right up until it's a setup. Then I'm like, you just wasted this whole cool moment of them like being something other than just Marauders for this really, frankly, stupid plot beat. And like, and then all of that in service of setting up this ambassador moment, which also was stupid. Although I will say, given the week that we're having in the United States, and if you're watching this and you're one of our fans in Texas and Oklahoma and the American South, like, oh my gosh, our hearts are with you right now. But for them to then come back to the UN and him to say, Madripoor has no snowplows, of course. They'll be shoveling tons of ice into the harbor by hand. It's like, wow, what a week for that line to hit. Because I've heard people talking about this kind of thing on Twitter, literally as we're recording this.
And the problem is that Madripoor is a tropical island. The ice will melt in the matters of minutes.
Right, because that's not storm. She didn't bring a whole winter storm. It's ice. Have a sculpture competition. It's not crippling.
So that part, I agree with you. Like the whole setup part, and then the UN scene, it just does not make sense to me. I even love that the new Reavers were aptly named, because the original Reavers were goons that were made by Wolverine.
Right, they're Wolverine leftovers. Really. I did have delight in that as a longtime fan, and I was like, Tyler's gonna love this. I literally thought that when I read it, because I know you love that stuff.
So this is like really appropriate, and then they were aptly named. And also, there's an implication here. There's like, okay, fine, the X-Men, the Krakoans cannot kill humans, but they do leave a trail of like, injured and maimed enemies around. And that is going to come back to bite them.
Going all the way back to the first issue of Marauders, where Kate phases the gun through the people in his knee, and people are like, that's kind of rough for Kitty Pryde. And we're like, it's a new time for mutants. But like, and it set up new Reavers.
Exactly. And and then it went back to like X-Men #4, where Gorgon basically just slice and dice everybody's limbs off, while they were waiting to attack. ambush Professor X-Men, you know,
Yeah.
and Apocalypse. So that
I
I
mean-
mean, that was a really good callback. And I mean, maybe we can just like, you know, erase the last few pages from our memory.
No, because I think like it would have been fine if they're like, oh, okay, like this is all of this happened, and then this ambassador person just kind of spewing all this nonsense, and we just left it at that. What really pissed me off is like, oh yeah, now the UN had a sanction against. I'm like, really? And then okay, and what is Krakoa's comeback? You
Well,
know, maybe
also-
that's what the next issue is going to be.
Maybe.
But also the need to say this is a setup. Like I think it would have hit better had it not been a setup. If that just was what was happening, you know. It's just, I mean, I have to say, you know, fashion wise, I am enjoying the blazer, the full buttoned blazer with no sleeves. That's cool. I'm into that, but that's the only really positive that I took from that page. It's okay.
What about the really flattened hair?
No. I mean, he looks like Keith Urban on not a good day.
like, ugh, like, you know, it's like, I'm like, that's like a racist look, you know.
And bangs with that haircut, really? Who are you cosplaying He-Man on the side? What guy has that hair with those bangs? Anyway, apparently a racist. So that brings us to the end of our discussion, I think. Does anybody else have any? I know, Tyler, there was some of our classic editorial misses here. Did you want to bring any of them up?
I mean, it's like Kate's dress just changed after the first scene. Like in the first panel where you have a far shots of her, she was in a gown with a high slit, and then the next time you see her, she's in a pirate costume.
Now, you don't think that could just be her pirate coat buttoned at the waist, but not buttoned lower, like the way Gambit wears his coat? You don't think that could be what it is?
No,
I
that's
don't
not
think so.
what it is.
No.
That's definitely
Okay.
not what it is.
I'm trying.
also-
Yeah.
I'm on your side,
know.
X-Men editorial team, just this once. Let it be known.
But the thing is, like, one thing to say that in that same scene, the Shaw is still there in his wheelchair.
Yes!
So they brought
Yeah.
Shaw for this. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
you have to come. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
the
or
cop.
like they probably just like didn't even ask, just brought him there. So
Well, that, folks, is really it about Marauders 18. If you're looking for other videos about this week, and actually just look elsewhere on the channel, because we talk about all of the X-Men books out every week. And until next time, on behalf of our departed brother, Harry, as well as Tyler and Fariha, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this discussion with us. You know, we figure out a lot more about how we feel about these books when we are in this recording talking about them. Why, Fariha?
because X-Men is better when it's read together.
That's right. So we're really happy to be reading them with each other, and so happy that you've joined us for your read of them as well. And we hope you are well until we get to talk to you again.